Everyone, it's Tamoor. I am here in Sony's offices, and I am one of the first people outside of Sony to get my hands on the PlayStation VR2. And I also just played Horizon Call of the Mountain, developed by PSVR2's. First things first, the actual device, the PlayStation VR2. It seems like it's come a long way since the original device. I think the most immediate thing that you'll notice is the comfortability. I put it on, and pretty much immediately there were a number of options for me to get it onto my face and in place in the optimal way. There's buttons on the back, buttons on the front. It now allows you to adjust the distance between the two lenses, so you can have it pretty much perfectly for you. Everything that you expect from it still works. You know, if you want glasses on, glasses off. The big ticket of course are the new controllers, which are based somewhat on the DualSense, and they obviously take a lot of modernization and a lot of evolutions from controller technology in the VR space. Specifically the Oculus stuff, the whole finger tracking stuff is something that has been pretty much associated with Oculus's Quests and Rifts and that kind of stuff, and now there's a version of it for the PlayStation VR2, and it works really well. I know that because I played Horizon Call of the Mountain, which obviously if you played Horizon you will know involves a lot of a bow and arrow shooting, but in this game, in this version of the game, there's also a lot of climbing, so which meant that I was able to really check the fidelity of how it feels to use your hands, and whether that's climbing up things like ladders, or scaling the side of mountains, or even doing things like picking up apples or lids of barrels and kind of really inspecting it. Horizon Call of the Mountain, very impressive. I had one of those moments where I was like, oh, this is why VR is magical and it's worth pursuing. Starts off on a boat ride. Obviously you're playing a new character for this game specifically, and you begin with a classic VR moment where you're sitting in a boat and you're kind of going through an area from the game, and it was pretty incredible seeing the world of Horizon from that perspective. First person perspective, it would be enough, but this is a immersed VR first person perspective where you can see all like the shrubbery and the bright colors and the mountains and the brilliant blue sky and the blinding light of the sun, and then you get to see the various robot animals kind of come and go, and the sense of scale is very overwhelming at times. I described it as having a Jurassic Park moment where, you know, the sense of wonder that you get in that you see in that movie where those characters are seeing dinosaurs, you know, wandering by. It was very similar where, you know, we had these enemies that I'd been seeing my entire life. I've been playing that franchise from the end of a bow and arrow, now up close and personal, and it was impressive fidelity. Pretty much everywhere that I looked there was a high level of detail, and it was very impressive. The other thing that I really liked about that demo that I played for Horizon Call of the Mountain was it felt like an amalgamation of a lot of the singular VR experiences that you would have up until this point. You'd had games that were, you know, focused on, oh, you're a tourist in this world, so you kind of just sit down and watch and get to enjoy the environments. Or you play another one which is like, oh, this is a bow and arrow game where a lot of the gameplay elements and the gameplay design is focused on you either shooting a gun or firing a bow and arrow. And then there's, oh, this is a climbing game where the only thing you really do is climb. This brought all that together and put it in the world of Horizon in a way that made a lot of sense. So across my entire playtime, I went from simply walking, which is done by holding two buttons and then moving your hands up and down, which felt quite intuitive, and I felt it to be a good middle ground between the previous two movement methods that we're used to, which is like teleportation or like actively pressing a stick to move forward. I felt like I had a little more control, and I felt a little more kind of involved in the process, which also helped reduce the kind of sense of motion sickness that people might feel. Your mileage will still vary, but as someone who is motion sick, I didn't feel myself immediately looking to hurl up my breakfast, but I did enjoy that kind of feeling of moving around. So I walked around a bit, I got to inspect the environments, and then went from there and went into climbing. The climbing part of it, very intuitive, simply holding down the triggers as I was putting my hand in place, and it would almost snap to the grabbable ledges, and then I was just physically pulling myself up. And it was so intuitive that I kind of like really got immersed in the feeling of and the process of like looking out for handholds and then grabbing them. And then by the time I realized, I was way high up a mountain, and I did the instinctive thing, which was looking down, and that overwhelming sense of peril that you get from VR sometimes kind of came over me. So I had to really like tell myself, oh, this will be fine, don't worry about it. And I think that really speaks to like the fidelity of what they've kind of rendered with this. It's like a very beautiful, very high res, very detailed game. So I found that to be quite impressive. And then we went on to some scenarios which are a little more combat focused. The weapon I had was a bow and arrow. Picked it up, you can choose what hand you want to kind of wield it with, and it does the classic VR thing where you put it behind your back, and you can also like pull out arrows to use together, and then it's manual aiming. There wasn't a reticle on site, so it was simply a case of like eyeballing it and letting your arrows fly based on that, which felt good. It felt like that's where like a lot of the skill is going to come for. Interestingly, obviously you cannot do a dodge roll in this game because you will throw up. So the kind of system that they've come up with is you hold two buttons and kind of like swing your arms and then let go at the end of it, and your character will do a hop in that direction. There's pretty much free movement up until major combat scenarios. So when you're walking around the world, you can look around in kind of increments and then use the movement method to move back and forth. However, when you're in a big boss fight, you have almost like a path set out for you. So you'll only be able to dodge in certain, along these paths. You can't like run forward and attack or run back and attack or dodge and that kind of stuff. So it kind of is a little more fixated to make sure that you're not overdoing it in terms of movement. And then I also fought a bunch of different scale of enemies, which was the impressive thing. At one point in the beginning, you get to kind of see the tall knights walk by, and it is very, very impressive to be underneath it and look up and see that character model in scale. And it did make me think, will I be able to climb up to the top of that and also kind of like see the world from the top down. I spoke to the developers, Firesprite and Gorilla afterwards, and they talked about the whole campaign lasting roughly 7 hours if you beeline it. I don't expect people will beeline it first time through. There is a lot of value in stopping to like really soak in the scenery, because as I mentioned, PlayStation VR2 is a big step up based on the little I've played so far from the original, especially when it comes to fidelity. So you will want to smell the virtual roses and pick arrows out of enemies and kind of figure out what makes this world tick. So and I found that rewarding. If I had more time, I probably would have spent way more time just walking around and looking at stuff. But based on the little that I played, I was very impressed. One, with Call of the Mountain, and two, with the headset. I'm excited to get more time with the headset and also that controller, and hopefully I'll be able to do that again soon. Thanks for watching. Keep it on GameSpot for more on Horizon and PlayStation VR2.
Hey! Shadow Karja! You can run, but I will find you!
I'm not trying to run! Hey! So, she's alive. And she thinks I'm trying to escape.